Hello, thanks for joining our presentation today. The presentation, we're going to discuss reducing cyber risk by controlling settlement agents in attorney closing states. This is directed at mortgage companies. Be presented to you by Mitch Tannenbaum and Ray Hutchins. We're the partners and owners of Cybersecurity LLC, which is a cybersecurity company headquartered in Denver, Colorado, and we've got quite a few mortgage companies as clients. Mitch, especially, and the reason that we have a lot of mortgage companies as clients is mainly because Mitch has a lot of deep experience in the mortgage lending industry. Mitch, would you tell everybody a little bit about your past experience?
So my background includes a lot of IT, building data centers, running IT teams and stuff like that. But most recently, I have about 20 years of experience in mortgage technology services, supporting both big banks like the top 5 banks and everything down to small mortgage brokers and medium-sized lenders, providing a whole raft of services from settlement services to mortgage tech to doc prep to outsource white box fulfillment, just a whole variety of different services.
Okay, thank you. So the problem that we're going to be talking about today is the situation where you've got attorney closing settlement agents posing significant cybersecurity risks to mortgage companies. And this risk is caused by an uncontrolled transfer of sensitive documents from you to them. Includes various the loan application, all the disclosures, mortgage note, deed of trust, etc. Now, we have found that many attorneys have very poor cybersecurity practices. Actually, when I first built this slide, I put most attorneys. Mitch thought we didn't have the data to justify that, but our experience is it's a pretty sad picture out there. But despite attorneys' legal and professional obligations to protect sensitive information, we're finding that most of them aren't doing it. And also on top of that, in order to protect themselves, they may routinely copy various documents, but they make no provision for safe storage and protection.
Specifically, in the absence of some kind of written agreement between you and them that addresses, what their cybersecurity practices are, then you're hoping that they have good practices, but you really don't have any control over it. And since you're the one who's going to wind up holding the bag if something happens, you really want to have more than a good degree of hope that they're doing what you want them to do.
So the solution is, if you're in one of these states that's got attorneys as closing settlement agents, you might have a little bit more leverage to help bring them into compliance and reduce your risk. So there's 22 states where attorneys are the closing agents. And you would think that they'd be more sensitive to various privacy and cybersecurity laws. All 50 states now have breach disclosure laws, obviously. You've got the GLBA, the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, a federal law, and attorneys are covered by this when they're dealing with financial services. And you've got state and privacy cybersecurity laws. The attorneys, and on top of that, they've got their ABA rule of professional conduct, which basically says, you got to treat your clients right. You got to take care of their data, and you got to use proper ethics and whatnot. And we all know that attorneys really do care about their reputations. I mean, they work all their lives to build strong reputations. And so, we should have their attention on this thing. And the fact that we're trying to help you set up a situation that you don't give them your business unless they come into compliance on this thing, that ought to help too. Anything else, Mitch, on that?
No.
Okay, so let's step back. Before we go into the details of this, let's step back just a little bit and look at the bigger picture. So controlling settlement agents / attorneys, that's part of what's your vendor cybersecurity program. And we call it the vendor cyber risk management program, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But your vendor cyber risk program is part of your overall cybersecurity program. So a professional cybersecurity program consists of the following cyber risk reduction components: risk assessments, policies, training for your staff, access control, incident response, vendor management, what we're talking about right now, IT operations and control, disaster recovery, business continuity, data security, physical security. Now, we didn't put these in any particular order. These are just kind of all the things that are part of a cybersecurity program. But we're talking about one part of that today. your vendor management, and the settlement agents.
So fundamentally, this is what your cybersecurity program looks like, and basically, this is what you want all of your vendors' cybersecurity programs to work like. And the attorneys in these states where they're directing the closing, they're your vendors, and you have a reasonable expectation they're going to follow something similar to this.
Yeah, everybody gets kind of weirded out about cybersecurity. They think it's so hard to do, and it is. There's some truth to that. It is not easy to do. It takes a commitment. I mean, but the whole country's under cyber attack right now. We really have no choice in the matter. But the thing about it is, these are the pieces of it. They don't change. They're not evolving that much. If you do all this stuff, you're in pretty good shape.
I mean, this is not related to an attorney settlement issue, but we just saw last month that Ascension, who was doing document imaging in the mortgage industry, they hired what would be to their client a fourth party, so the third party to them. That adds even more risk to it, and they let loose over 24 million mortgage documents. And now all these lenders who they were doing work for, they're on the hook for this particular breach, and I'm sure Ascension will be too, but depending on how much insurance they have, they may be out of business.
Yeah, it's a nasty problem they're involved with. Okay, talking about the vendor cyber risk management program, when you give your client's data to a third party for any reason, if there's a breach caused by that vendor, who's liable? Well, you're the one who gave it to them. You're the one who assumed the responsibility for that data in the first place. Now, your vendors include your loan origination system, your independent loan originators, other support technology vendors, and your settlement agents. Anything you want to add to that, Mitch?
No, this just needs to be a formal program. The attorneys are one piece of it, but it addresses all these other things. If you're, God forbid, there was a breach of your LOS, and you have a cloud-based LOS, like some of the big guys that everybody knows, that's a problem, and you're on the hook for that. Your independent loan originators depends on the definition of independent, right? If they're just selling you closed loans, well, that's a different story. But if they're working on your behalf, well, you're probably going to get roped in there.
Okay, so back to the original problem. The attorney closing settlement agents pose a significant cyber risk to mortgage companies. And now we know this, and we're going to give you an example, a case study of one of our clients that we're working with. This is a New York-based mortgage lender that we've been involved with for 3 years. They've got a very strong cybersecurity program, very strong commitment from their top management to make this thing happen, being done very well. They have a vendor cyber risk management program in there as part of it. And they've got a bunch of attorney settlement agents. They started off with 300 of them in the state of New York, and they've now whittled it down to 200, but there's kind of a process that they're going through here. Mitch, would you describe that process, please?
So just to be clear, your numbers may be bigger or smaller depending on the size of your territory. The only attorney state that they do significant business in is New York. So if you're doing, let's say you do business in Texas, another attorney state, and you look at the geography of Texas, you may be, these numbers may be small for you depending on how many cities you do business in. So the numbers aren't important. What's important is the process. So the way they started was they sent out a registered letter to each of their attorneys saying, we are in the process of creating a attorney risk management program. This is required by New York regulation where we are licensed, which it is. New York has something called the Department of Financial Services 500, DFS 500. And we're going to go off and send you an agreement. In their case, they did it electronically because they thought that would be easier for people to acknowledge. It outlines the conditions of satisfaction that the lender had in order for these settlement agents to go off and continue to do business. So this is maybe, I don't know if there's much of a difference between existing settlement agents and new ones, but this has to address both of those. Just because they've done closings for you in the past doesn't give them a free pass out of this liability. So they reduced a significant number as a result of sending out these letters. Some people just said, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. And then now they're doing individual audits. They're looking at the specific responses that came back. They're looking at the documents, the policies, the training, the different things, and then they're going to go back to these agents and say, here's your deficiency. And that's a lot of work. There's no question about it. You can use, there are certain vendor management firms. My experience is that for the most part, they're pretty good at compliance, not very good at cybersecurity. However, at least some of them that we've used before do allow you to add your own set of questions. So if you go off and do that, then those agents would work okay. And obviously, different agents, different, third parties charge different ways, but that's certainly a way to go do it. One way or the other, there's work to be done to go off and reduce the number of settlement agents, and that's going to be based on the number of states that you do business in and the amount of geography that you're covering. That's really the key point there.
And the idea here is, of course, not to just, reduce the number of settlement agents. The idea is to reduce your risk. But in order to do that, you will reduce your settlement agents because you're going to have a certain number of them not willing to go do the things they need to do to improve their cybersecurity program. So, but in the course of this, in cybersecurity, you have some very, basic principles in terms of reducing risk. But one of the core principles is to reduce your attack surface. Give the attackers less places to attack you. Well, if you're reducing the number of people you're dealing with and sharing your data with, you're reducing your attack surface. That's going on here.
Absolutely, no question about that. On the other hand, if the settlement agents are willing to go off and meet you halfway and build a cybersecurity program, then that's okay too.
So the thing that's going to kind of govern this new relationship is going to be you establishing a legal agreement that is going to be governing the protection of the information that you're transferring over to them. And in that agreement, they're going to indemnify you for any damage they might cause you or your clients for their poor cybersecurity practices. And if there is a problem and you can prove that they broke the agreement, then you've got legal recourse. You've got some muscle there that you can do something. Also, as we're going to explain, as per this agreement, they will have cyber insurance in place to help cover those damages.
And just to simplify this a little bit, right? We don't care what their practices are, and we don't care about proving they broke the agreement. If they breached, then they're responsible because that's what it says in the agreement.
So the basic agreement, basically what you're saying, in order to get our business, you need to do the following.
Or keep our existing business.
Or keep our existing business, all right. Establish a professional cybersecurity program, which includes all the components that we mentioned earlier. Handle and protect sensitive documents defined in the agreement in certain prescribed ways. Handle breaches in a particular way, and then obtain appropriate levels of cybersecurity insurance and promptly respond to your audits and questions. So that's basically all that you're asking of them. However, when I say all, there is some stuff here that has to happen.
And the thing is about, if you're talking about, so you have all different size of law firms, big law firms with lots of attorneys and support staff and internal IT. And then you have solo practitioners, one attorney, maybe a paralegal, and an outsourced contract IT organization. So, the big guys, we have one firm I know here in town who has an absolutely great cybersecurity program, but they're a mega law firm with hundreds of attorneys, and so they know that they're a target, and they have big name publicly traded companies, and those companies are forcing them to have a robust cybersecurity program. But you start talking about these smaller law firms, and they probably don't have much of anything. They don't have the expertise, which is why the program we're going to talk about in a minute is really good for them, because it reduces the amount of brain damage that they're required to go deal with.
In our business, in our cybersecurity business, we get customers one of three ways. Number one, they have a breach. Number two, there's some compliance issue that's driving them. And number three, they have somebody has got a big customer, an important customer that's telling them, hey, before I can do business with you, you've got to get your cybersecurity ducks in a row, because I'm having to get my ducks in a row too. And so that's what we're talking to you about right now. You going to you're the customer going to your service provider saying, I need you to get your ducks in a row here.
And it's not voluntary. I mean, there's not an option here. I mean, you can, but it's kind of like, do you run around without business liability insurance or errors and omission? You don't do that either, right? I mean, you could, I suppose, not do that. But there's really, for all intents and purposes, there's really no option here other than to do this.
Yeah, but there are a lot of businesses out there that are making conscious or unconscious business decisions not to do something about cybersecurity, when indeed, I mean, they're operating on top of an IT infrastructure, and they've just got to protect their data and protect their systems, but they're not, and they're assuming that risk. That's a risk that they're operating with right now.
But for example, this case study we were talking about earlier, this settlement agent saying, I'm sorry, the mortgage company is saying, if we wire money to the settlement agent and they get hacked and they lose the money, we're going to be on the hook for that money. And they're kind of looking at the number of zeros in that conversation, and it's a lot of zeros, and they don't want to be in that boat. So, if you choose to effectively, be self-insured in this situation, you can. But I mean, we've heard stories here in Colorado of people having to write checks, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. Is that a check you want to write?
So what are your options here? Well, you got two of them. You can build this out yourself. You can put all this together yourself, and we've laid it out for you. We've told you what you need to do step by step. So it's all right there. Or you can use our system. We've put together a system. We're not giving you a big commercial here today. This is the only slide about this. It's called our Mortgage Industry Cybersecurity Program, and it even includes a certification where we will certify that the customer has done all these various things. What is it they've done? Everything I showed you earlier in that list. This program includes all of it. This is for a smaller operation. Bigger companies can't get away with this $7,800 deal, $7,850. But for mortgage companies with less than 50 people, with settlement agents, 5, 10 people in a shop, 20 people maybe, they may get away with this. That covers all this stuff. We've got it there. There's the URL for it. You can go look at it. And like you said, we will even certify it. Now, if you've got some key settlement agents that you want definitely to be in line with your program, tell them to take a look at this. There's really no more efficient, cost-efficient way of getting it done the right way than this program.
And if you go to the bottom of our homepage of our website, you'll see what the certification, there's a little logo there. You click on the logo, you can see what we're tracking, the kinds of things, the information that we'll provide to you if people choose to get certified in participating in this program.
Yeah, if you go to this URL, it has all the information there. It's even got a little button where you can pay for it in 2 installments even. So it's all this. But if you have a question about it, give us a call. Happy to talk to you about it. Thanks for your time today. We appreciate this, and let us know if we can be of assistance to you.
Take care.